attribution never has worked as it was advertised. And as someone who's been embedded with many a company that has tried to get attribution right more than once, like I have felt that it has never worked as advertised.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your no-fluff guide to artificial intelligence in higher ed. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing nearly 20 years of edtech and marketing expertise straight to your earbuds. Higher ed leaders are expected to master AI overnight, but let's be real, no one has time to sift through every headline, hot take, or research report. That's why every Monday, I'll break down what actually matters. Fast, clear, and to the point. Want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next team meeting? You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Higher Ed Pulse. Today's episode is for anyone who has ever walked into a board meeting and been asked, what's actually driving enrollment? Because in a world where dashboards glow and attribution promises precision, the scariest answer is this. You might be measuring the wrong thing. Josh Dodson says attribution is broken, and if he's right, a lot of higher ed marketing strategy is built on sand. Josh, we are going to dig in today. You bring 20 years of experience turning marketing data into measurable outcomes for higher education and healthcare organizations. He recently joined BVK as VP of Performance Marketing and Analytics, leading analytics, attribution, and performance marketing for BVK's clients. Josh is authoring a forthcoming book on marketing mix modeling called What's Working? The Marketing Mix Modeling Playbook. And I happen to get a sneak peek, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Josh, welcome to the Pulse.
Thank you, Mallory. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited to see you. I think the last time I saw you was in real life in North Carolina. Is that right?
I think so. We were able to meet up when you were in town one day. Yeah,
that was so nice. Cute little coffee shop and everything. But hey, at that time, you were kind of on your own doing this marketing mix modeling for a variety of clients. And now you are back in-house at BVK. And like 3 weeks back in-house at BVK. Yeah. I think when this drops, you'll have hit your 1 month mark. But my gosh, what has that transition been like?
It's definitely been a change from going from not having a regular daily schedule and kind of being able to flex my hours a lot more to having that regular time on screen and everything like that. But it's been awesome. I've loved the transition. I have a great team. I've been able to meet tons of amazing people. And I mean, a lot of folks I'm sure are already well known in the industry that from BVK. It's a great company, and I'm thrilled to be able to lead analytics and kind of see what I can bring, things like marketing mix modeling, like we'll be talking about today. But yeah, it's been wonderful so far.
Awesome. Yeah, Tam Powell is no stranger to Enrollify. I had the pleasure of interviewing her at the AMA conference a couple years ago, and I know since then she's been on a couple other shows. So, I mean, little plug, listeners, go find all the Tam Powell content you can, because she is like 10 out of 10. One of my favorite humans. I think it's certainly one of my favorite women in higher education. She's a force. And you get to work with her every day. I'm so jealous. Well, let's get into our topic of the day. Your book opens with a $10 million mistake. A company reallocates budget based on digital attribution data. The dashboards look strong, the math checks out, but then brand awareness drops and revenue follows, and the CMO gets fired. And this is every marketer's nightmare, right? But your diagnosis is blunt. Attribution systems reward what they can track, not what drives demand. With privacy regulations, iOS changes, and cookie collapse, user-level tracking is unstable, and this illusion of precision is gone. Josh, in your book, you argue that marketing mix modeling, or MMM for short, listeners, you'll hear us say that throughout the convo today. You argue that MMM is experiencing a renaissance because it works at the aggregate level. It looks at patterns across channels channels over time and measures contribution over clicks. And it forces leaders to ask bigger questions like what investments are going to move the whole system. For higher ed, I think there's some real structural implications here. We know recruitment cycles span 18 to 24 months, and so many influence enrollment, families, counselors, aid packages, et cetera, et cetera. Traditional digital metrics rarely capture that full arc, and Josh actually dedicates an entire chapter in his book to higher ed and nonprofit MMM, outlining what models can and can't solve. So this is not a book about math, which I was grateful for as I was looking through it. It's not a book about math. I don't want to scare anyone off, but it is a book about executive decision-making, and especially decision-making under uncertainty. And man, who has not experienced that, especially in the last few years? So, and in this moment where AI is rewriting how we measure and optimize, these questions just feel even more urgent. So Josh, I'm going to stop talking because you do open with that $10 million mistake, and I got to know more about it. As a reader, it drew me in immediately, but why did you start there? And what did that story represent for you about how marketing leaders are making decisions today?
Yeah, the dashboards were perfect, but the business was failing. It's kind of like you said, it's the nightmare of a lot of marketers you're making decisions based on the data that you have, but it might not be the best data, and it's almost definitely not the complete picture. And so being able to show people what reality can look like in those circumstances, this is a situation like all of the stories in the book. They're composite examples that I've pulled from real life, but changed a little bit just to
protect the innocent.
There he is.
Yep.
And so, this kind of thing happens regularly. I would say in higher ed, it's not happened quite as frequently, but in e-commerce and other industries, it's something that has been happening for a while. You mentioned the kind of renaissance of marketing mix modeling, and that's because it came out in the 60s. It's been around for a while, but it was one of those things that Fortune 100 companies were sort of the only ones that could afford to do this sort of thing. It requires building lots of models and things like that. And so it's been exciting because it's been much more inexpensive. The average practitioner, someone, if you have a data person on your team or a programmer, a Python programmer on your team, can easily implement a model. It's gotten a lot easier. And so the Renaissance makes a lot of sense with those issues like you're pointing out. But one thing I do want to just quickly define, just to make sure that everyone is super clear on what marketing mix modeling is basically a statistical method that measures how different marketing outcomes like TV, digital events, out of home contribute to outcomes like enrollment. And so it takes a step back from what you would typically see with multi-touch attribution, last click, those sorts of things. It takes a step back to look at it from a higher perspective, a higher point of view, and can really provide some insights on things like incrementality that you can't get otherwise very easily.
Yeah, we are in a performance obsessed world. I mean, my gosh, and there's so many different models, and I don't know that I have an opinion about what model is best and when and where, because it feels like, I don't know, it feels like the claim you made in chapter 1, that attribution never has worked as it was advertised. And as someone who's been embedded with many a company that has tried to get attribution right more than once, I have felt that it has never worked as advertised. And so, I don't know, Josh, you're the expert. What specifically is broken, and what do you think CMOs are kind of still clinging to?
Yeah. So a few things have broken. A few years back when iOS 14.5 came out, cookie depreciation, all of this kind of blocking of tracking, especially across multiple websites, across devices, all of these things suddenly became broken. We had been relying on them for quite a while. We tracking cookies across all of the visits, even CRMs and things like that. So we started to be able to see this deterioration of tracking. And so the tracking became less reliable almost overnight. And so that's something that's been a real issue. But even something that's a little bit bigger than that is that it even when it was working like it was intended, it never saw the full picture. And it never gave full credit to all of the players. I think one example I like to use is if you think about Michael Jordan, arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time, won 6 championship rings with the Bulls, but he didn't win it alone. Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, he had a team of people that were right there supporting him. And I think that if you could imagine, the game's over, Michael Jordan gets a ring and Dennis Rodman is sent home, or Scottie Pippen sent home, he doesn't get a ring. It's
with the pat on the back. Like, good job, guys.
What's with that? It's
Yeah.
the whole team played a part, right? They played together working towards that goal, and that's why they all deserve the rings. So I think marketing is a little bit like that, where we often treat the very last action as the most important. And it's important, but there's a lot that happened before it. And that's something that I think is really crucial to understand. There are a lot of blind spots, potential blind spots, in kind of a dark funnel in some way, if you think about it, because even when leads enter the CRM, they're only entering it at that point of lead. You don't know what happened before. You never have that full visibility. So this is something where, how we look at this, we think about it and think, how can we solve this problem? And well, that's kind of where some of this comes in. One of the important pieces that I think is worth mentioning is something called the carryover effect, right? So in marketing, it doesn't just happen, impact what's going to happen and then go away. Like, that impact continues over time. And so if you see an ad, you're going to remember that ad later on. And that's something that is just a natural part of marketing. But we don't model for that when we look at things like last touch. What was the very last channel that brought me here? Marketing mix modeling, however, does consider that. And it's looking at, the entire window of, does it take 6 weeks for this ad to work? Well, don't just measure the first week. So that's kind of a part of this, and building out that the evolutionary algorithm and the Bayesian modeling, these kind of advanced terms and stuff that you don't really need to think about too much, other than to know that it's been built to be able to solve some of those challenges that we weren't able to really model for otherwise.
So it can fix a lot of things, but it also can't fix everything. And there's a line, if I'd had a physical copy, there's a line I would have underlined twice. You cannot market your way out of a demographic cliff. Oh, amen. Somebody finally said it. Okay.
Yes.
Why was it important to say that out loud, and maybe point out that, marketing mix modeling isn't the magic wand to every challenge? And like, if I'm an enrollment leader listening right now, how should I interpret that?
Yeah. Well, you can't fix a demographic problem with more marketing. If people don't exist in the demographic that you're targeting, you can't invent them out of thin air, unfortunately.
Wait, Claude can't do that yet?
Not yet. Maybe soon enough. But that it's like a real challenge. And I think that what can you do? Well, you can target other areas and kind of reallocate your budget, but you do have to face the reality of the situation. And so I think the first part is just recognizing that there is a problem, right? It's sort of like fixing anything. We want to recognize there is a problem here, but are we focused in the right areas to be able to really impact that and improve that reach in different areas? And so it's a real issue. Marketing mix modeling cannot fix everything. It can't fix a demographic problem. That's just the reality. But if you are wanting to optimize your budget and figure out like how do I do more of what's working and less of what's not, that's exactly what it can answer. And so you do have to be careful. There's no magic bullet for any type of measurement solution in marketing. So yeah, that there are definitely some things that it can't fix.
Okay. Let's take a quick pause to talk about something big happening this summer, Engage Summit 2026. The next era of higher ed isn't about adding more tools, it's about building an agentic campus where AI works alongside your teams to recruit smarter, support students faster, and scale impact without burning people out. From real-world examples of agentic systems in action to hands-on sessions that show how AI can coordinate enrollment, marketing, advising, and operations, Engage Summit is where institutions move from experimentation to execution. If you're ready to design a campus where AI doesn't just assist, but instead acts, learns, and drives real outcomes, then you'll want to be in Charlotte this summer, June 15th through the 17th. But it gets even better. As an Enrollify listener, you can grab your ticket for half off. Just head to engage.element451.com and use my code Mallory50 to apply the 50% off discount. That's MALLORY50. I can't wait to see you there. Now let's get back to the conversation. Translation's the job, though. So how much of the success of this modeling approach is statistical rigor? How much of it is interpreting what you see?
Sure. It's important to have the statistical rigor. When I always think back to my time at SNHU, where I had the privilege of working with some of the smartest practitioners in the industry. Kevin Seaman and Steve Kadarian were two people that would often quote something I would hear just kind of throughout the office. All models are wrong, but some are useful. And
I like that.
If we think about it like that, like everything is wrong, like we're not going to create a perfect model. And if you create a perfect model, it's probably not the right one anyway, because it's overfitting. And so when you're thinking about it like that, the real question is it useful? Can we make decisions based on it? And I think so much of that goes back to the practical implementation, making sure that it's not just a PDF that sits on someone's desktop and, waits there and nothing happens, which is a very real possibility. That happens a lot. And we can sometimes see with consulting, you want to make sure that it's actionable. That's the important piece. The statistics are important. That has to be part of it. But at the end of the day, it has to be translated into something that's actionable and you're consistently making work for you.
Yeah. If, like you said, if it's just living in a PDF, on your desktop, you might as well not have even done it in the first place. There's no difference between it being an unusable doc on your desktop and literally not having it. So what are your tips for making it usable?
So you have to have institutional buy-in. And that doesn't mean everyone in the institution, but everyone that's around you, you need to be able to sell them into it. I've heard it, be referred to as, inviting them into the tent with you, helping them to see the relevance of this. And that's not easy to do. That requires a little more than statistical rigor, a little politics even sometimes, but helping them to see we're going to be able to make better decisions. At the end of the day, we're all going to be able to do a better job because we're going to have better data and we can see what's happening. So I think that's a big part of it is just making sure that you have that buy-in, you're able to socialize it and get people excited because everyone wants to do a good job. Everyone wants to, to have their boss look at them and think you did great. Everyone wants that. And so if you help everyone see that this is work that we're doing together, that we're optimizing the entire funnel, that we're optimizing the entire way we're looking at this, it's easier for people to buy in, I think.
So let's put our mindset into that of one of our listeners right now. Let's pretend we are the VP of enrollment at a mid-sized institution, but perhaps limited analytics depth. There's a lot of options out there. In your book, you outline some open source tools. Of course, there's different SaaS platforms. There's consultants like yourself. So where do I realistically start if I am that VP of enrollment?
Yeah. So I think it starts with an honest evaluation of the resources you have available. If you have an awesome team that knows Python and has the time and the bandwidth to do this and to learn it, that's a fantastic way to do it. Having the team learn it and work towards it together. There are several open source options. I mentioned Robin is one of them. That was by Meta, the Facebook company. Another one is Meridian. It's an open source option that you can use. And there are several others. And then, as you mentioned, there are several paid options. The key, I think, really is just honestly evaluating what expertise and what skills are needed to be able to accomplish it. And sometimes that means bringing in a team, hiring an agency, like giving me a call and say, "Hey, let's talk and let's figure out how this would even work." And to be honest, some institutions just aren't ready for it. They just aren't. They don't have the data set up well enough to be able to do that kind of analysis, or internally the structure is just not working for them to be able to act on that kind of analysis. But if you have the team, you have the structure, the knowledge, there are a lot of different ways that you can approach that.
So you mentioned like a consultant could accelerate this for an institution, but it wouldn't be a Higher Ed Pulse episode if we didn't talk about AI at least for a couple minutes, because we are in this moment where AI is also accelerating a lot of things, and it's easier and faster to optimize. How does AI intersect with marketing mix modeling? Like, does it make it better? Does it just continue to amplify the exact same measurement blind spots? Like, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, this is an important question. And I think for a lot of people, when they first started encountering AI, they got excited about what it can do. And then maybe they realized some of its limitations. And so in relation to marketing mix modeling, what AI does really well is it can help you with things like data cleaning, getting the data, pulling it from the right platforms, making sure that you're using the best version of that data, combining documents, things like that might be a little bit trickier, outside of it. But one thing that I do want to be very clear is, when we're running these kinds of analyses, like we're generating thousands, sometimes tens or hundreds of thousands of models to just for one report, for one analysis. And that can take hours sometimes to run on, state of the art personal computers. It can still take hours. And so this is something that is still intensive when it comes to computing bandwidth, much easier and cheaper than it used to be. And there are ways to make it very inexpensive. But one thing is, like, if you're comparing that algorithm, the analysis, all of the work that's going into it for hours versus an AI looking at it, the AI will find patterns, but it's not going to look at it in the same way. You have to be careful, because right now the current state of AI, it's a lot more like emphasizing the multi-touch attribution approach. And so it can pull out some information, it can pull out some recommendations, but keep in mind that those recommendations are often tactile recommendations. They're tactical, they're small things that you can do in the platform to make changes and improvements. They're not strategic, higher level changes. So you just have to be careful, know what the limits are. In a couple years, this might be an entirely different conversation where MMM can just do all of it with AI. We're not there yet. Now, one benefit, though, I will share, just kind of an extra piece, is that one of my favorite things to do is take the analysis, the output, drop it in AI, and then say, like, explain this to me like I'm a 12-year-old.
Yes.
You want to be able to understand it in simple terms yourself so that you can explain it to other people in simple terms. So that's a great use of AI for this.
That's a great idea. One of my new favorite prompts is that I'm having my AI write everything as if they're speaking to a 10th grader, finding, like, not at a 10th grade reading level, but like speaking to a 10th grader. And I'm finding that is like somewhere in that sweet spot of, it's not too basic, but it's not too jargon filled either. So there's my little pro tip. But so it does seem like there is a risk that AI is going to make some of these attribution problems worse. But so, okay, like, let's put ourselves back into the shoes of the listener. Like, if I'm a CMO and I'm looking to balance AI driven micro optimization with the macro level allocation decisions, like, what are your tips?
Yeah. So there are a few different things that you can do and ways that you can look at it. So AI is getting very good at telling you how hard to run, but marketing mix modeling tells you whether you're running in the right direction. because it's extremely easy to run faster and harder, but you don't always know if it's in the right direction. Is this the right combination of channels, or do you need to mix it up and go in a different direction? So that's something that traditionally the old-fashioned way of doing marketing measurement has not fully answered that question that marketing mix modeling is able to.
Do you see a future where AI is going to lower the barrier to entry for marketing mix modeling? 'Cause right now, I don't know that I could go out and do that on my own, right? Like, I don't have the right skill sets for that, but I've got Claude. No. But like, I also don't want to risk like oversimplifying something that really requires a lot of judgment and experience. But like, where will that barrier get lowered?
And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said that it requires the judgment and the experience. That's something that AI isn't bringing to the table yet, not fully, obviously. We have that human judgment and the experience from past campaigns and all of that historical knowledge and the industry knowledge. AI can make up for a lot of that, but nothing can really make up for your own good judgment. And so I would say that AI can definitely lower the floor to marketing mix modeling, but the ceiling still requires human judgment.
All right, that makes sense. So let's say I'm walking into a board meeting tomorrow. What is the one question about marketing performance that I should be asking differently because I just listened to this episode?
Sure. So I would say, stop asking which channel won and maybe start asking which investments moved the whole system. Is the whole system moving in the right direction? Are you seeing the reliable signal in the noise that these channels, this group of channels together, are working stronger? So it's not an either or winner loser, for a single channel like we often treat it. It's really more of what combination or how does this work together to move the whole system? And so I would say one additional piece to that would say, where should I spend my next marketing dollar? That is a very clear answer that marketing mix modeling can answer that no other approach is able to, at least not as well. So where you can spend your next dollar and is it moving the system? I think those are two really important questions.
Yeah. Oh, I would say they are incredibly important questions. And what CMO doesn't want the answer to that, right? Like, of course you want to know where to spend your next dollar. So that dollar spent gets you 100 in return or 1,000 in return, whatever it is. That's awesome. Josh, it was just terrific getting to chat with you about all of this. As we're wrapping up, any parting thoughts?
I would just encourage you, if you're thinking about doing marketing mix modeling, explore it, research it. My book will be coming out at the end of March. And so you can contact me on social media. LinkedIn is a great place to see a link to that book. And dig in, try it. Don't be afraid, but also recognize the limitations and have a truthful evaluation of your team to be able to do it or not. So, but always welcome. Give me a call. I'm always willing to talk about it.
Amazing. All right, folks. Well, man, it is a busy time of the year, and we know that we are smack dab in the middle of yield season, and there are giving days left and right, all these really important things. Hopefully this podcast is part of what gets you through the season. Do not forget to run to Apple or Spotify and leave me a quick rating or a comment. I so appreciate it. That's what helps our network grow. So on behalf of myself and all of Enrollify, we so appreciate that. And thank you for the privilege of being able to be in your earbuds every single week. Folks, we will catch you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Pulse. The show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.